Hello, thank you for joining today. Today we're going to talk a little about Genesis 17 and God reestablishing the covenant and giving Abram/Abraham a little more information about the covenant that he was making with him. But first I want to ask you this question: what's in a name? I've talked before about the Hebrew concept of a name. A name has power, and this is just logic. This is true today. A name has power. Let's imagine that you are flying through. Let's say you're flying to Los Angeles for some reason, and you're flying through Atlanta airport, or you're flying through Charlotte, one of the major hub airports. Or let's even go a little further out. Say you're connecting through Dallas Fort Worth, which is a pretty big airport. So you fly into Dallas Fort Worth and you get out and you're walking across the terminal, and there are thousands of people in this common area. And then all of a sudden someone yells, not just for me, David, but all of a sudden someone yells, David Wyke. Well, you turn and look, and this has happened maybe once or twice in my life, but you turn and immediately you're, all right, who said my name? And you start, because there's someone in that crowd of thousands of people that knows my name. And there's kind of I don't want to say a power, but it is, there's kind of if someone says your name in a situation like that, and you stop and start looking for them, there's they basically said your name and made you stop. I stop and look. No matter where I travel, it seems like I run into somebody from Florence. So for me, it's probably someone from Florence. Could be somebody from my life in IT, or somebody from my home of Greenville, or it could be somebody from New Orleans Seminary. I never know who it is, but I stop and I look. And you probably do too. Because especially in Abram's day, a man's name, that meant something. And so, and maybe that's why my grandfather and my dad tried to instill in me, your name's all you got, son. Keep your name clean. Keep your name in a good place. In Genesis 17, verse 1, now, and Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will multiply you exceedingly. Verse 3 says, Abram fell on his face, and God talked to him, saying, as for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you will be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall you be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I will make you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings will come forth from you. I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and your descendants after you. And I will give to you and your descendants after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. God said further to Abram, now as for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between you and me, that you and your descendants after you, every male among you, shall be circumcised. And you shall be circumcised by the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Now God went on to give some very specific details about this covenant and about the sign of the covenant, which was circumcision. Now, I'm no doctor. I have always heard things that circumcision is a more hygienic approach to male life, if you will, but that was not the intent. God established with Abram/Abraham, because he's renamed him now, that circumcision would be the sign of the covenant. And we think about, we think about this, and not to get into the particulars of, but he told what circumcision was right there, and you can go back and read it. I just don't want to get in trouble. Uh, Not to get into the particulars of it, but this sign of the covenant would also be an internal sign. You see, neither I nor any man I know goes around inspecting other people to see if they're circumcised. Uh, there are very few people that would actually know if you were or if you were not, and it's even more so in Abraham's day, but God knew. And so this sign of the covenant was, again, it was not salvation, but it was a physical representation of the fact that they belonged to the family of Abraham and eventually to the nation of Israel that God would establish. And so anything dealing with that area is very personal, and especially so in Abraham's day. And this was a personal way that these families would show that this child was a child of the covenant. What I want to focus on this today for the next few minutes, though, is the fact that God renamed Abram, because there's something I don't want you to miss. I said before, your name has power, and Abram was, I believe, 99 years old. Yeah, that's what verse 1 says. And so for 99 years he'd been Abram, and God decided to change his name. For God to change the name of Abram, there's also this sign of the authority over God's life, over Abram's life that God held. For God to be able to change his name is this sign of authority, and it's a sign of relationship. Don't miss the significance of that. And ask yourself, do I have that kind of relationship with God? You see, folks, we can talk about salvation, we can talk about church, heaven knows we can talk about politics, because have mercy, we've been talking about politics for too long. But do you talk about relationship? And if you did, what would you say? Hope you have a great week.